Welcome to Experts at EWU. And it's one of my favorite things to do because, frankly, I learn a lot, and you will too. I'm welcoming another outstanding professor from EWU, and I'm going to look at my cheat sheet. It's Wauren Stachowiak.
Yes,
Did I get it?
nailed it.
Okay, I'll mess up the rest of these terms that you've got in here and so forth. But welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us what it is you do.
Well, I am a dendrochronologist or a tree ring scientist that uses tree ring data to sort of piece together and reconstruct bits about wildfire activity and environmental aspects of the past on our landscapes. So reconstructing things like how wildfires behaved, what they sort of looked like in the past, and how ecosystems of the past have changed through time, particularly with climate change.
Yeah. Tell me about your background, because you didn't just decide one day, well, you might have in high school, that this was going to be a career, because it took more learning than that, right?
Yes.
So walk through your degree and interests and things like that.
Yeah, so I've always been sort of someone who's really enjoyed the outdoors, and so connections with forests and nature, so to speak, were sort of natural to me. And in my undergrad, I studied geography and environmental science.
Okay.
And that translated into a master's degree where I looked and used something called geographic information science, or
Okay.
GIS, as we call it, which is a way of using spatial analysis to look at patterns on the earth. And that sort of just took off.
Yeah.
From there, it was tree rings and wildfires in my PhD.
Tree rings. Why that?
So trees are these really awesome things that they record.
They're really a time capsule, aren't they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They are environmental. They're recorders of everything that happens around them in the environment for the entirety of their lives, and they do this really cool thing that not a lot of other environmental pieces of data do, which is they put on one ring per year. And so
Okay.
that annual resolution or granularity in the data allow you to see changes in
And
these
patterns. And
patterns in the
Yes.
environment through time, in the environment near that tree. Yes.
Right. Yes, because you probably would not see that in plants, regular plants and so forth, because they have a shorter life cycle.
Right. It also if it has to produce the wood, the wood per year. So actually, not even all trees will do that. So
Oh, really?
so if a tree is growing in a much more tropical environment, or an environment that doesn't experience a lot of seasonality, either in temperature or moisture, or some environmental pressure on that tree,
Right.
that causes that tree to shut down. So like, for example, around here it's winter, right? So in
Yes.
winter the trees sort of they go dormant, the end of the
So
growth.
they might not be collecting as much.
Right, so they're collecting nothing. That would
Oh,
be in
oh.
the tree ring, the end of growth. So you wouldn't see anything
Oh, really?
past.
So it's not a true year.
It's like a growth year, right? It would
Okay.
be it wouldn't end on the in December, so to
Okay.
speak. But if the tree is growing in an area, say in the middle of a rainforest where it's always getting enough sunlight and moisture and it's
Right.
always warm, it's not actually forming those annual rings.
Yeah.
And so it's still doing other really cool things for us, but not forming that sort of environmental data we need.
Yeah. What can you tell about climate change through the rings? Can you?
Oh, yes. You can
Okay.
tell all different kinds of things about climate through time. You can look at changes in precipitation, so you can actually see how precipitation regimes may have things like drought, for example, may have fluctuated through time. You can also see lots of things about fire. So in tree rings,
Okay.
you can actually see the preserved charcoal. So you can see instances on how fire activity have changed through time. The ability to look not just at that specific spot, but that specific spot through time is what
Okay,
allows
right,
the
right.
power. Yeah.
Especially if it's a few years or a decade or more.
Yes.
And so forth.
Summer temperature is also something that's very commonly reconstructed, seeing how temperature is changing through time
Yeah.
via tree rings, yes.
So how has it been changing?
So we are seeing in a lot of areas that the droughts, for example, in the Southwest, well, throughout the West in general,
I was
actually.
going to say,
Not just the
don't leave out the
Southwest, yeah.
Northwest this year, at least.
Actually, yes,
Yeah.
it's the West in general. We're seeing, for example, are the worst in hundreds of years, in some places over 1,000 years, maybe.
Okay. But when you say that, it's happened before, though, too.
Right,
Right? I mean, this
right.
isn't. everything is going to heck in a handbasket necessarily the first time it's ever happened.
Right. And in
Right.
fact, that's actually usually what actually draws even more concern is not only that what we see now as being truly sort of catastrophic to our, for just using drought for as an example,
Right.
our water resources, how we use it, the water availability we have is already sort of stressed. We already see those limitations,
Right.
and we've seen actually drought can get worse in the past.
Okay.
So, right. So
are we headed there, right?
Right.
You
So
know,
that's another layer that tree rings can sort of pull out is actually that, what we're experiencing now is bad, but we actually have experienced worse.
Right.
Not at the rate of change we're seeing, but in terms of those levels, yes, it actually can get worse.
But I was going to say the first thing that does to me is it says it allows us to react because we have the history and the knowledge now that
Right.
1,000 years ago they didn't. And let's face it. I mean, maybe they had some of it, but minimal.
Right. And it's that positive outlook that we can still actually, this isn't irrevocable. This isn't
Okay,
something we
right.
can't, it's not like a doom and gloom thing, so to speak. Like we actually, like you say, we have
Care about our environment.
Yeah, and we have the knowledge. We just have to start having the conversations.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I noted in looking over a little bit of your background is how important wildfires are to you. And even your comment back to me with my son, who's a fireman.
Yeah.
Okay. And so my guess is you know a lot of what they go through.
Yes.
And it's dangerous.
Yes.
We know the stories of all of that. It's hot. I mean, literally hot out there with what they have to wear to protect themselves. And then they walk toward fire.
Right.
And
then you add in top of it, like the heat waves we're experiencing
Right.
all over. So there's, yes, layers.
Right.
Yes.
What are you learning from all of this that will help, not only help us in terms of maybe managing our forests and some things like that, because there are things that we can do, but helping firemen?
Right.
I asked that selfishly for my son. Okay?
Right. Yes. And I want to preface everything. Like I've never been on the front lines. Those folks do some truly amazing things for our
Yes.
community. And I honestly think the number one thing right now that can be done is pay them more. We really need to devote, and that's like devoting resources, time, money, and all that encompasses into supporting firefighters in the moment. And when they do, I mean, they oftentimes drop what they're doing at a moment's notice.
Yes.
I mean, we are at preparedness as a nation level 5 now, which is the highest level.
Okay.
Resources are stretched as thin as they basically go on the level. And so folks from North Carolina are being called to action to fires in Montana, so to speak. And that's, those are
Yes.
actual things happening. And it's not only like physically demanding,
Yeah.
because it's in the middle of summer and you're walking to a heat source that's constantly moving and constantly changing. Some of these fires get so large that,
And they can turn on you real fast.
yes, they can. Yes. And we hear about losses all the time.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so I would say for the firefighters right away, it's devoting the resources as much as we can to support. And also on the back end too, because, it's more than just the physical, roughness that they experience and pushing their bodies to the limits, but, it's the mental trauma too. It's
Yes.
experiencing what it's like always walking into
They're seeing
a
destruction.
situation. Yes.
Constant.
Yes, always.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Whether they're walking into a forest fire or to an auto accident or whatever.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes they're, they have to, go home and sort of grapple with that. And so there's
Yeah.
also the back end as well.
Right. It's really an interesting subject. I learn a lot from my son. He's gone back and taken the courses where they've developed a down building, and you have to crawl in to get somebody in 45 minutes or 50.
Right.
I'm going to get it wrong. And first thing I ask
All
him,
those
well, how did
tests.
you do? Did you make it? No. He said, it's almost impossible. But you learn from what you're doing, and it steadily got better and so forth. And then he came back to Spokane and helped teach it to others in the area, because it can happen in Florida, it can happen here.
Yep. Yes,
I
and
mean,
it's that knowledge, that sharing of knowledge that is
yes.
so vital in our communities moving forward
Yeah,
about fire.
it really does make. We're so lucky today between cell phones and now the system that's in Spokane that puts firefighters in touch with other firefighters and what's going on. I forget the name of the program.
Is that Pulse Point?
Yes, Pulse
Yes.
Point,
I've
and so forth.
recently discovered that. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, it's
my
amazing.
son called me one night. He rarely calls at night, knowing that we're early to bed at our age, and
So
said,
late night calls are always kind of, yeah.
"Yeah, yeah." And he said, "Do you know you have a fire on the next street over?" Well, the funny part was, and it's not funny, of course, but the ironic part was, it was our first house in Spokane on the next street
Oh my
over,
gosh.
because I drove by it the next day, and of course you can see all the fire trucks and emergencies they're sent out, and they, to me it was overload, but it was, if we don't stop it at this
Now,
house.
yep.
Yeah, and it turned out it wasn't that bad, but it got up in the attic and outside wall and all that. But we all know instinctively that another 5 minutes, it would have been next door. And the
Yeah.
houses here on the South Hill, especially in this neighborhood, are fairly close together, you
Right.
know?
And fire tends to burn up slopes. So
Right. Yes. Yeah. Where are things going? In what you're, let me ask a question before that. Um, your students, what are they interested in? Why are they taking your classes? What do they want to do with that?
So what I hear most from students in my classes, particularly the skills-based courses, are basically, what can I do for my community? Like, I want to leave this class with a skill or something that I can then take and immediately translate into action.
Okay.
I want to engage with my community in that way. And so, for example, a lot of the climate change courses, they build community action plans.
Okay.
Where, I let them get a little creative. They can pick, their hometown or Spokane, or like they can
Sure.
make entirely fictional cities, but it all has to be based in the science and stuff. But they're really, really connected with having an action, like having something like tangible they can look at, a step by step that they can then do in their society. They can then share with others. A lot of that in my classes tends to take the form of like maps or geovisualizations.
Okay.
So that's what a lot of GIS is. And
Okay.
so, for example, they'll look at, one of my GIS classes, they look at different pieces of data that might relate to wildfire activity or a natural hazard to a home, and build the map that then isolates areas of potential risk for
Right.
that neighborhood.
Right.
And that's kind of like, it's connecting the event, whether it's a wildfire or a flood or sea level rise or whatever climate change impact it is, or aspect of climate change. They're connecting it directly with their
Right.
communities.
A lot of it's being prepared, and we live in a beautiful country here. And as you know, a lot of folks want to be out and experience it with their homes and so forth. But even here in town, we live on hills. Fire goes up usually,
Yes.
and things like that. And we've had folks on from various fire departments and natural resources, and Guy, I forget his name, Gifford,
Yes.
has been on and talking about preventing. But the real practical of that came down to me one day when JP and his crew were from Fairchild a few years back out in the valley when it was going up in the Ponderosa area or something like that. And he said it really does, if they don't take care of around their homes, it really makes the decision of which houses we work at, because that one's a goner. It's just a matter of a few moments. That one have worked at clearing, we have a better chance to save that house. And as rough as that is, it's a decision that has to be made.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Yes. And life over property every time.
Yes.
And I would argue, and this is something I teach, one of the biggest things I teach in my wildfire classes, and sections where we talk about wildfire, is
Right.
this idea of defensible space and the
Yes.
idea of if you're going to live in fire country. Now, that I would argue that term is changing everywhere is
Yep.
fire country.
Right.
But if you're living in what is out here in the West known as fire country now, you must be fire wise. You
Right.
have to understand that if you're going to own property, you need to clear out your defensible
Right.
space. You need to not put your wood pile against your home.
Right.
You know, like that sort of thing. And yes, you need to recognize that as picturesque as you may think those trees immediately around your property are,
Exactly.
they
Because this is what you
actually-
came out for, you know,
right,
is to be out in the
exactly
in nature. I get that.
Yeah, it's actually it's an interesting thing because, you know, the forests out here look the way they do now. They're so green, they're so full of trees because we've had lots and lots of fire suppression over decades, you know, over
Yeah.
100 years in some places. And so the idea that we have of what the forest should look like is actually a newer idea, and it's not what's actually natural for these
Right, right.
ecosystems. So if when they come out, you know, when folks come out and they want that picturesque, you know, cabin in the woods,
But I really want the tree over here.
yeah, exactly. I want it close to my house. I want
Yeah.
that sort of, yeah, it's really
Right.
unsafe. Yeah. Yeah. And when you have more fuel on your property, the fire burns hotter, it's much more dangerous to it's harder to put out, for example. So yeah, less resources will be allocated likely in that direction.
What's the one thing you want your students to walk away at the end of your class?
Oh gosh. I would like I would really hope that when they walk out they're critical thinkers
Okay.
because
I love that.
what we do and by we I mean like the geoscience and the climate change and the fire science, all of that community that encompasses a lot of folk, it's always been political, and that's not a problem, but the ability for it to not be completely based always in science or for there to be twists and warps, being a critical thinker really helps you get at the bottom of things and really ask the right questions. And once you have the question you want, pursuing it in the right way, sort
Yeah.
of thing. So I would hope for that, because I mean, obviously, I can't always be there, and I would hope that critical thinking would be number one.
Yes, good for you. I think that's great. We need more of that. I lied. That wasn't the last question. Um, uh, what should they walk away with in terms? Oh no, are there other what I would call wildfire nerds? And I say that in a loving
In an
way.
affectionate
Okay,
way, yes.
like you are. Do you discover some of that in your classes?
Yeah, so wildfires tend to be, well, actually those kinds of catastrophic natural disasters tend to be sort of like quote unquote sexy in the classroom. Students really get into that, and that's the draw of the catastrophic versus the chronic.
Yeah.
That slow creep of sea level rise is not as interesting as
Right,
you know
yeah.
seeing the world on fire. But yeah, there are students. What I actually really love the most, and in being, speaking of Fairchild,
Right.
being as close as we are at Eastern, I actually get a lot of students. I've had a lot of students over the years who've been wildland firefighters or have experience in the past. Maybe they're not at that time
Right.
taking the class, and they're in my biogeography, and they're learning about disturbance of fire on the landscape, and they're like, yeah, no, I know,
Right.
like I do this. This is my job, and they have that firsthand knowledge. I love that.
Yeah.
When I see that, people get really interested in fire because it probably draws back to this sort of, like we've had this connection with fire for a long time. We've only recently been this aversion, suppression mentality, but people on landscapes have been involved and had, alliances and partnerships with fire for a long time. So I think it's natural to be this sort of excited.
Yeah.
I want to learn more about it and what it means to have fire on the landscape.
Well, and when you and your students learn more, we all benefit from it.
Yeah,
Okay. When
yes,
that
the
when that
community
news
knowledge,
info
yeah.
can be disseminated out to those who can or are on the front line, or the rest of us who just can do certain things around our own homes.
Yeah.
I mean, really simple things. I'm just thinking of a couple things I won't mention. At our house, I'd better get to. Okay. Lauren, thank you.
Oh, thank you. This has been a pleasure.
Well, good to have you. As I said at the beginning, I love doing this program because I meet some really interesting folks like you, and I learn something, okay? And even old people can learn something, okay? And maybe we can all make things a little better too. All right?
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching Experts at EWU, our campus out at in Cheney in downtown Spokane. Love it. Love it. We're a college town here. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.